Commonwealth is a very dynamic family with things happening constantly. And it is really the Secretary General who keeps tabs on things, who anchors the Commonwealth response, working, of course, with the various organs of the Commonwealth, including the Ministerial Action Group, which is called into service whenever a situation requires it. So it was really a question of getting an update from him. But very importantly, it also involved addressing issues that did not arrest our attention in Kampala. For example, the global food crisis that the world now faces, and the impact that it is having on Commonwealth countries, the stupendous increase in the price of oil, which is also doing severe damage to economies, particularly of poorer countries. So we had a general discussion on that, looking to see what the Commonwealth response would be and the extent to which the Commonwealth could perhaps induce the kind of global deliberation and global response that is necessary. The Commonwealth is a very unique organization. It is an organization that has been held together over many, many years, not by treaty, not by charter. It is held together by common history, commitment to a set of principles that we all hold dear and we are determined to preserve and to protect. And therefore it's very unique. I mean, we come together not because we have to, because we want to, and because we feel we can make a difference. And I found that to be very, very inspiring. And therefore Jamaica will continue, as it has always done, to be very active in the Commonwealth and to contribute in every way that we can. It means far more than people would readily see and appreciate. One of its most important commitments is the preservation of democracy and the rule of law. And there are so many times that the Commonwealth has intervened. I think it does so in two ways. It does so in terms of espousing those principles, promoting those principles, using those principles to define its own membership and the countries that will be allowed admission to the Commonwealth. But secondly, it intervenes in situations where democracy is being subverted, undermined. And much of the work that it does is done, as we call it in the Commonwealth, below the radar. Informal interventions, using moral suasion where moral suasion will work, applying greater force in terms of mobilizing of public opinion where that is necessary. And I think it performs a significant role, because so many of the issues that we have been able to resolve in the Commonwealth were resolved simply because the process was not one that was in the glare of public spotlight. It wasn't being done with ultimatums where positions tend to be hardened and therefore solutions tend to be so difficult to achieve. The multilateral infrastructure that we have today was actually established coming out of Bretton Woods, and that goes back 60 years. The world has changed since then. Circumstances have changed. Relationships have changed. It's not that these multilateral institutions have not themselves changed, but I don't think that their core functions and the mandate that they see for themselves have sufficiently taken into account the realities, the new realities that exist. And I think we need a broader look, a more comprehensive analysis of what are the deficiencies. And there are deficiencies. We are particularly concerned, for example, that middle-income countries like Jamaica, which are not classified as extremely poor, but at the same time have not yet got to the stage where they're at that point of takeoff to sustainable growth, that countries like our own are not factored in the general scheme of things. There are provisions for very poor countries, and there are requirements or expectations of rich countries. Those of us in the middle tend to be marginalized and in terms of the agenda. So I think that there's need for a real serious look at how the multilateral community operates. And I was very pleased. I raised the matter in Kampala in the margins of the conference. I was mandated to do so by CARICOM. And I was very pleased. I raised it in a meeting with Prime Minister Gordon Brown. I was very pleased at his response because he also shared our anxiety to see a new structure. He undertook to take it up with the G8 countries. I had a meeting with him again yesterday, and he has reiterated that commitment. I'm concerned, I'm apprehensive that in view of what has emerged since in terms of the global crisis that we face, now that could perhaps delay the kind of focus that we would want to be placed on it. And yet, the failure of the multilateral system to take account of the dynamics in the experiences and relationships of countries, I think perhaps has contributed to the problem that we now face. So it is something that we have to focus on. CARICOM, along with Dominican Republic, have concluded negotiations. We did so at the end of December, and we are expected to sign that agreement in the middle of July. It's not a perfect agreement. Nothing that you have to negotiate is ever perfect. There were gains and there were some losses. In every trading arrangements, there are dangers, but there are opportunities. And I think we mustn't wait for anybody to find those opportunities for us. We must go seek them ourselves. And in order to do that, one of the first things that we have to do is to make sure that we become globally competitive. And that is not something that we need to do for the sake of EPA. Right. That's something that we need to do for the sake of our own future. Right. If we are to take our place in the world and if we are to provide our people with the standard of living that they deserve. And in order to do that, there's a great deal of work we have to do. We have to improve our education and training of our workforce. We have to improve our infrastructure so that the environment for investments will be created. We have to make sure that the judicial system functions properly, because no business climate can really achieve the level of facilitation of business unless you have a society in which the rule of law prevails and in which the judicial system functions effectively. There are a whole range of things that we have to do. Some of it represents a backlog that we've allowed to develop that must now be cleared off. Some of it represents just the continued evolution of a country in terms of its development. But that's the challenge that we face. We must face those challenges, and we must take advantage of the opportunities. The world is now faced with a crisis of a proportion that perhaps we have not seen, certainly in the last 50 years. It requires a global response. But it requires a global response that is going to involve specific initiatives that have to be taken by each country. Food security is now perhaps the most important thing on the agenda of any country, anywhere in the world. And I think we must all recognize the impact that this is having on our people, the extent to which it is undermining the people in terms of their standard of living, the extent to which it may be eroding gains that individual countries have made. This requires serious world preoccupation. It requires a proactive response, and it is something that people in every Commonwealth country must now begin to focus on and urge their governments to take seriously. And we're very proud that one of our sister islands will have the opportunity of hosting the Commonwealth Conference. Jamaica has had the privilege of doing that twice before. And we will give Trinidad all the support. We do have considerable experience in staging conferences of this nature, and we're going to make available that expertise to Trinidad if they feel that they need any assistance from us. But it's not so much an honor for Trinidad, it's an honor for the entire CARICOM region. And we are proud to share in that honor with Trinidad.